Welcome to this edition of Under the Radar for Saturday, August 26th. And this week we'll look at how, after desperately looking for some real Nazis, leftists finally found some and have subsequently overplayed their hand because, of course, they did. So back in February, I put out a video called Nazis, Nazis Everywhere, which was naturally demonetised not long after it was posted. And basically, I took the view that leftists, in their desperation in the wake of Trump's election victory, were labelling anyone right of centre a Nazi. For example, Gavin McInnes.
Fuck you! Fuck you! Back up! Back up! Back up!
Or some random guy for being bald when he actually has a medical condition.
They're skinheads that hang out organizing this event.
Really? Where? I mean, he's got no hair, but I don't know. Does he have like the?
I mean,
how do you know he's a skinhead just because he's bald?
In skinhead style, he's at a right-wing event. I mean, like, what do you?
I don't know.
Put two and two together.
It could be. It could
so,
be.
like, why would you associate yourself with that?
I have alopecia areata. It's a medical condition that I got while I was serving in the military. So I had a backpack on that stops cell phone signals from detonating bombs under our feet, and it either gives you a big white stripe up your head, or if you, do you mind touching me? So feel right there. Baby smooth, right? Now feel right there. So I got patches on my head. So I had to shave my head because how would you rather me like have weird awkward patches on my head? That'd be weird as fuck. So I just shave it because it looks better than having patches. But no, I'm not a skinhead.
He said you were.
Technically, I'm a skinhead, but I don't believe in the ideology. Because technically, so
He said you were wearing the getup and you had like put two and two together. He says, you know, you got the getup, and I was skeptical. I had no idea one way or the other.
no, I don't. I'm not a white nationalist. No, I'm not a white supremacist. No, I'm not. I don't believe in Hitler. Like, I don't do the goose step. Like, I don't do it.
Yeah.
Literally, the only reason I'm bald is because I have alopecia.
And of course, Donald Trump, because he once raised his arm like this, and we all know what that means. Now, those examples seem quite ridiculous at the time, but in the wake of Charlottesville, they now seem relatively tame. You see, instead of just assuming that a guy with a bald head is a Nazi, you just walk up and punch him.
Right now!
Sanitation. No. Elaborate. What does that mean? Sanitary housing.
What do you think about white people? What do you think about white people?
Say what you
Say
mean.
it.
People, hate is not the answer. It's not fucking
Fucking
hate.
tell him!
Jesus
Christ.
Christ.
Stop it! No, that doesn't help.
Now, you might say that's not new. They did that to Richard Spencer, although he's not quite bald. But you see, it's different because this guy, as it turns out, was actually at the Boston Free Speech rally as a counter-protester. That's right, they actually punched one of their own.
You do not hit somebody that you assume is a neo-Nazi. You cannot do that. He is on our side. Do not do that.
Just sit down.
Here we are, man. I'll get you a medic. Water? Yeah, I've got rubbing alcohol.
You're gonna need to wipe that out.
And so the ridiculous continues to ratchet up. ESPN pulls broadcaster Robert Lee from calling a University of Virginia football game in Charlottesville because obviously he would remind everybody of what Robert E. Lee would look like if he took a time machine 150 years into the future and became an Asian sportscaster, calling that white supremacist game of NFL, of which the majority of players are African American. Yeah, that makes sense. And now the ACLU has capitulated to hysterical racists because they tweeted this image with the caption, "This is the future that ACLU members want." Now, of course, the context is that the ACLU supported the right of white supremacists to march in Charlottesville, as they should have if they believe in defending the First Amendment. This is something the left has forgotten. They believe the First Amendment is only for people that they agree with. But of course, white children holding an American flag with a free speech shirt on is obviously a sign of white supremacy, with which the ACLU seems to agree. And how could we fail to mention the new definition of Nazi, which is, if you condemn equally both sides of political violence, that means you're giving cover to Nazis, which of course is what Donald Trump did. Now, Trump was right to point this out, and he also screwed up by not initially singling out neo-Nazis for condemnation. It seems to me that was the obvious thing to do, and he failed at it the first time. But he was right to say there was violence on both sides. But this will now get you labelled a Nazi if you suggest that political violence is equally bad on the left as on the right. Surely we can agree that political violence is bad whether it comes from the left or the right. Apparently not. Just ask one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, for example. She now won't meet with Trump because he is literally the same as Hitler. Quote, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter told the Los Angeles Times that the movement won't be taking a meeting with President Donald Trump anytime soon, even to discuss how BLM and the Trump administration can work together to find common ground, because Donald Trump is basically Hitler. Patrisse Cullors sat down with the LA Times because she's about to release a memoir detailing how Black Lives Matter came to be and how the movement plans to expand in the future. That's probably going to be a short book. When asked if the door was open to talk with President Trump, Cullors said, "We wouldn't as a movement take a seat at the table with Trump because we wouldn't have done that with Hitler. Trump is literally the epitome of evil, all the evils of this country, be it racism, capitalism, sexism, homophobia," Cullors said. She went on, "He has set out some of the most dangerous policies, not just that impacts this country, but impacts the globe. And so for us, the answer is not to sit with him, but to resist him and to resist every single policy that he's implemented that impacts our communities. And if I'm thinking about what I want my children to know in 30, 40, 50 years, Cullors went on, I want them to know that I resisted a president at all costs, because this president literally tried to kill our communities and is killing our communities." That's right, Trump is literally trying to kill communities and is actually succeeding in killing them. I don't think that's right, but I do remember Black Lives Matter having a pretty good track record on this. But moving along, according to a professor at Clemson University, all Republicans are racist scum, and in the true leftist style, he's advocated for violence in a series of Facebook posts. And not only that, he's got an acute case of white guilt. This society is aggressively structured to make cis white males succeed at the expense of minorities. In another post, Kinnenberg equates President Donald Trump, Trump voters, the GOP, and Steve Bannon to Nazis, the KKK, and the alt-right, declaring that they're all racist. What a lovely young man. And what do you think a regressive weakling like this would look like? Yep, that's exactly how I imagined he would look. And finally, two professors, one from Purdue and another from Stanford, are trying to legitimize the terrorist organization Antifa by soliciting support for a campus anti-fascist network. According to Inside Higher Ed, the Campus Anti-Fascist Network, or CAN, was organised by Purdue University Professor Brian Mullen and Stanford University Professor David Palumbo Liu, with the intention of serving as a big tent for anyone committed to fighting fascism. Since Trump's election, fascists, neo-fascists and their allies have used blatantly Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, racist, misogynist, homophobic, transphobic and ableist, are you sure you got enough buzzwords in? Messaging and iconography to recruit to their ranks and intimidate students, faculty and staff, Palumbo Liu wrote in the group's invitation letter. The time to take action is now, he maintained, saying, "We call on all interested individuals and organisations to support or join the Campus Anti-Fascist Network." Now, listen to this leap of mental gymnastics. As part of its efforts, CAN provides a syllabus which labels fascism as a historical expression of capitalism's tendency to dominate the poor, working class, and oppressed people. So capitalism now equals fascism. Got it. Mullen told IHE that the network has grown to 200 members, including students and faculty, in the wake of the events in Charlottesville, Virginia, adding that CAN will build large, unified demonstrations against fascists on campuses and protect groups that are vulnerable to attack. The issue really is not speech, but rather the kinds of actions a group is known to engage in that precisely impinge upon others' free speech, academic freedom and civil liberties, he said. We are organising to protect members of campus communities from groups that come to campus to provoke physical confrontations, purposely destroy property, invade individuals' privacy. Does this guy realise that he just perfectly described the very actions Antifa has been engaged in for the last couple of years? You're basically asking Antifa to protect students from the actions of Antifa. But that's the world we live in now. It's not everyone that's right of centre is now a Nazi. It's everyone to the right of Antifa is now a Nazi. And before I go, the August live stream will take place next Sunday, September 3rd. Yeah, I kind of forgot about it. At 9 a.m. Sydney time, which is Saturday night East Coast US time 7 p.m. and West Coast at 4 p.m. And this live stream will be open to everyone, although you need to be a patron to ask questions. So there's a separate form on Patreon for patrons to ask questions and one on Minds for those that are subscribed over there. And if you donate via PayPal and you'd like to ask a question, send me a private message through YouTube Messenger. And don't forget to include the name that you donated under. So that's it for this week. Try not to run into any Nazis, although that's probably going to be impossible given that almost everyone is now a Nazi. I'll see you next time.